It is Friday morning, NBL Now, thanks to Code Sports, your number one source for everything basketball in this NBL season. Round 10 is underway. FIBA break only days away. We've got plenty of teams looking for W's as they head into their mid-season holiday. Joel Peterson with you this morning. Great to have for the first time here on NBL Now, a man who played 270 games in this league, champion here and abroad. Mitch McCarron's jumped on. Mitch, good. Thanks for stopping by. Good to see you, mate.
Thanks for having me on, Joel. It's good to be on the show.
We'll get into everything in terms of game stuff very soon, but just want to check in with where you're at. Of course, retired in the off-season. Tell us a little bit about what you're up to at the moment.
Yeah, so off the floor, went and got some real jobs. Working with the Players Association in the player engagement space, which has been really fun. Kind of seeing a different light and a different side to it. Working with the athletes that I used to play against or play with. And then I'm also working with the Perth Wildcats in junior pathways stuff. So helping some younger kids and eventually younger coaches, upskill themselves and get ready to keep taking steps forward. So that's been really fun. And then on court, I'm back on court a little bit. My NBL 1 coach for next year has told me I need to get in shape. So I'm working on that.
Very nice, very nice. And I can see by the artworks in the book you see in the background that you've got another job that's keeping you busy as well. I'm assuming the players that you're working with aren't reading the spot books.
No, they don't have the extra homework. So I'm bringing my kids in so they can look after them and, get some reps in there too.
Nice. We like that. A couple of your old teams are off to a really exciting starts in this season. Melbourne United and the Adelaide 36ers occupy two of the top two spots at the moment. They've sort of been the bellwethers so far in this season, and everyone's looking at them to potentially go the distance towards sort of championship series. What have you made of those two teams over the start of the season?
Yeah, both really, really talented. Obviously, it's any given night, similar to feel last year when Adelaide were on. It was kind of like, oh man, they're really hard to slow down. Obviously their personnel have changed. They added Bryce and Kendrick's gone to Sydney, but just as dangerous, and Melbourne just consistent as ever. I think it's going to be one of those. I think it's going to be one of those things where it's like when those teams are on, you have to be so versatile and you have to keep throwing different matchups at them because they've got so many ways they can hurt you on the offensive end.
And if you're a fan, you got to be sitting on the couch and watching them, which is good fun. In terms of players and imports this season, you're sort of coming to this as someone who's on the outside looking in now. So who's caught your eye? Who do you enjoy watching of the new faces in our competition this year?
New faces, obviously McGee is that kind of star power. I just don't. I think numerous coaches have said I don't think we've seen something like him in the league. I mean, not recently anyway. I played with Taco last year, which was great, but McGee's a whole different story in terms of the movement and versatility, athleticism. So, it's been exciting watching him and also to see his attitude and energy. It seems like he really enjoys it here and he loves being here. And I think that's contagious and the fans pick up on that. Walker from United has been exceptionally good. The way he's quickly adapted and into their system and been able to have an impact on games consistently has been really, really tough. So, and then I think, Bryce going to a new team, I think there were questions about, how would he settle in? And he's just Bryce. So, those are the main three so far that I've been like, wow.
Things tend to settle in around Bryce is the way that usually goes. What about some of the younger players that have caught your eye? I mean, we're lucky to have some great up and coming talent in this country. Of course, the Next Stars program is one thing, and the likes of Malik Lewis and Karim Lopez are putting together strong campaigns. But in terms of the local talent of the younger brigade, who have you liked the look of this year?
Yeah, it's I don't know what we qualify as young. I guess I should have mentioned Bryce Hamilton too from Tasmania because he's been incredible all year. I think someone like Nick Marshall's having a bit more of a breakout year with an opportunity down there in Tassie. It's awesome to see after a strong New Zealand NBL campaign. Owen Foxwell's obviously had a massive year and just looks to be so confident in his play. And even the Bullets have been decimated by injuries, but, to see some of their younger guys get an opportunity, guys like Divas who played in NBL 1 South last year that I saw and quickly taken a jump up to the next level. It's just awesome to see those kinds of guys get an opportunity and do something with it.
Yeah, there's great stories across the board. Let's talk Brisbane Bullets because, of course, they played last night against the Southeast Melbourne Phoenix. They were sort of hanging around in this game, and then Southeast Melbourne puts them away in the final quarter, a win by 27, 103-76. So another 100-point night for the Phoenix. That's 3 in 4. That's 7 times this season. A career night for Geordie Hunter, so an equal career best, 24 points, 9 rebounds, couple of assists, shooting the three really well. He was 4 or 5 from outside. The big challenges are yet to come for Southeast Melbourne, though. Are they playing at a level in your mind where they can challenge a team like Adelaide when they front up against them on Saturday?
They look as cohesive and confident as I've seen them in years. Obviously spending some time around that group or off the court as well, it just looks like they really get along. They're really working in the one direction as a team, and you can see that resonates on the court. At the start of the year to where they are now, they're just building and building and building. Like you said, they're just knocking over 100 points consistently, and they seem to really understand how they want to play and who they are. And they're a really tough unit, and especially if you've got Big Geordie knocking the three ball down like that, it's a completely different cover than what teams are used to with him. So I think they're a really, really talented team, and it's nice to see them clicking.
Yeah, they've got that big challenge on Saturday. We'll come back to that. For Brisbane, I mean, Lamar Patterson goes down last night. We had Casey Prather interviewed on the sideline who was injured. And then you see Mitch Norton limping off and you go, oh, no. Luckily, that was only cramp, and a very visible cramp at that one. I have no idea how Mitch Norton's calf is today, but I imagine it wouldn't be too friendly to him. Have you ever been part of a season like what they're having, where almost at every turn you trip over something and you just get these injuries upon injuries upon injuries? Like, what would that be like in their locker room in terms of team dynamic and just trying to keep morale up?
Yeah, I think that's the biggest challenge is obviously you can look at it with different perspectives, but opportunity is great for the young guys, as I talked about before. That's exciting for them to be like, hey, I'm going to get an opportunity to play here because of injuries. But you also, as a teammate, you don't like seeing your teammates go down, and you don't like being a team that, we had an identity of how we wanted to play, and now we've lost, key personnel all over the place. And so now you're trying to restructure how you have to play to try and, find some wins. And obviously that's a really tough dynamic for them to deal with. I've loved the way they've tried to compete. I know some shots, haven't been going down, and they've had a couple losses on the back of that where it's blown out at the end of the game. But, they've come to every game and competed. I mean, you've seen it in the games, where Casey's throwing himself around for the full game, and I'm devastated to see him go down again. But I think it's just awesome to see them keep competing and keep getting after it. And again, it's just one of those things where you have to embrace, like, hey, like, the injuries suck, but it's an opportunity for a young guy to try and make a name for himself, and we've got to get behind him, and I'm sure they'll do that. Casey's a great teammate. Those guys that have been out for a while, Sam McDaniel, etc., they're all great teammates, so they'll get behind those guys.
Yeah, they haven't rolled over in too many games this season, that is for sure. They just keep swinging away. They can now go and rest. They don't play another game before the fever break, so put the feet up preferably on something soft and stable. Brisbane Bullets, we do not need any more injuries up in the River City. Hey, Friday night doubleheader tonight is sort of prime time basketball at its best. Two really enticing games. So Melbourne Illawarra and then Perth and Tasmania. First of all, you've got United, who are heading to the Gong to take on the Hawks. It sort of feels like every game is really critical at this juncture of the season for them. Their form's been pretty mixed, but they've got this sort of emotional response that they can tap into when they're at home against United. How big an assignment is this for the Hawks tonight?
I think it's a massive game. I'm sure they'll be looking at it that way. You always, when, someone who's on top of the ladder comes into town, you always want that win. And I think if you're kind of going through some struggles or you're trying to find consistency as a group, you do circle, people will lie and say you don't, but you do circle games and go, hey, this is a massive one for us. Like, we get this one, then we get rolling, and then we get the net, that's a great way to get yourself going as a group. And I know those guys have had some injuries too. Obviously, Hickey out at the start of the year, and they've been trying to deal with how they want to play as well. So I think it's going to be a great game. I expect Illawarra to absolutely bring everything they've got, and I think United will do the exact same.
We've seen teams try and stretch their defense, particularly with the bigs. So New Zealand have had great success with this, with Sam Menenga being able to step out, shoot the three ball, pull JaVale McGee away from the rim. That's the sort of defensive blueprint that is potentially there for teams. So to counteract that, what do the Hawks and JaVale need to do to try and keep this on their terms?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I'm not part of their coaching staff. I don't know all their rules, ins and outs. I would, assume that, similar to, I guess, when Andrew Bogut came back and was playing for the Sydney Kings, they weren't asking Bergs to get out and show on every on ball and be at the level because, why? Their defensive efforts were really like intense on the ball over everything and trying to push everything to the ring and just get everyone off the 3-point line, knowing that you had to go finish around Bogut, which was tricky at best. So I think I expect their on-ball pressure to keep lifting as a group. It was kind of their identity last year in their championship run. It was just this relentless wave of guys that were pressuring the ball up the floor and playing at a high speed, and they've got the personnel to do it. So I expect they'll just keep growing, in as a group that way, and then hopefully they're able to find some consistency.
Is there a critical matchup or a critical phase in this game when you line these two teams up tonight that you think might decide the outcome?
Obviously, JaVale had a massive game last time they met, and I think Dean spoke to it. It's just like, that's an incredibly tough matchup for anybody, So, but I also think, Tyler Harvey is a guy that can just break the game open. So I think that, everyone kind of knows, like, if Tyler and JaVale are rolling, that group's going to be incredibly hard to stop. And Hickey's just out there getting triple doubles, basically every other week, or a triple double threat, I should say. So, I expect them to pick the pace up, play fast, and that's going to give great opportunities for guys like Tyler and Will to push into full court.
Yeah, they got those Melbourne Bigs into foul trouble last time they met and had a field day from there. So that's going to be a fascinating matchup tonight. And then we get Perth and Tassie as a nice little nightcap just to close things out. So the Wildcats all of a sudden are found some form and they're looking the goods. Tassie have lost 5 in a row. Those all at home. So now they hit the road where they were good earlier in the season. They get David Johnson back. Will Magnay's on the precipice of a return as well. If you're Scott Roth and you're Tassie, how do you try and write the course of your season? And is this the perfect kind of time to go on the road in a strange sort of a way?
Yeah, I think you're a bold person if you're riding off a Tassie group with Scott Roth coaching it. Year after year, everyone kind of goes, oh, they're done, and then they're not. So I think they're going to be fine as a group. As a group who understands who they are and what they're trying to achieve. I don't think they'll be afraid of road trips at all. Obviously, they would have liked to probably had some more success at home, but they'll use that as a bonding. There's certain groups that have done this over the past, whether it's Melbourne United in January because of the Aussie Open or Perth because of the tennis, where they go on the road for long periods of time. You approach it with a mentality to be like, this is our goal. This is what we want to get done. This is opportunity for us to either make or break our season. And that's it for Tassie right now. You've got a string of road games coming up that would be massive wins. So, again, another group that I expect will be bringing it from the tip.
Perth, they're only percentage out of the top 4 right now, but they're playing some really good basketball. What do you like about the way the Wildcats are playing at the moment in terms of, how they might shape up longer term as a title contender?
Yeah, I really like the versatility within their group. They've got great length. They've got some really great specialist defenders, shooters, scorers, rebounders. Great to have JLA back in the league as well. So I think it's awesome to see them start to get rolling. Obviously, they had a bit of, issues early on, just, understanding exactly how they're going to get wins and finding themselves as a group. And it's a relatively new group. So, that's somewhat to be expected. But the talent's there, no doubt. So I think, now that they've found themselves, they're starting to get a roll. They're really deep. They got a lot of guys that come off Henschel, Pepper, etc., that can just get going. So Doolittle seems to have really settled into the season as well. So I expect them to keep rolling.
And then they've got David Duke Jr., who comes in as their new import. What have you liked about his game? Do you think he could be sort of that missing piece that can really vault them among those top bracket of teams?
Yeah, I really like his temperament, to be honest. He seems really comfortable and I guess smooth. Like, he doesn't seem to overforce things and plays at his pace, gets in the paint, finds his teammates. It just seems really natural for him to get others involved and then occasionally get himself involved as well. So for that group, it's perfect because you've got a couple other guys that can, really light the scoreboard up. As well, and you've got a couple main targets in JLA, Winler, Doolittle, whoever it is that you're trying to go to offensively. So for him to quickly settle in and look really comfortable within the group. From I thought game 1, game 2 looked really comfortable. And the year that really is having as well, I probably should have mentioned him as one of the young guys because he just looks super at home in this league. He's done really well. So I just love the balance within their group.
Could be a fun environment over there at RAC Arena. You get a couple of people walking over the bridge after an afternoon at the cricket, and away we go. So could be reasonably hostile for the Jack Jumpers tonight in the jungle. Southeast Melbourne Adelaide is one of the marquee games of the weekend. So Saturday night, it's a really big test for Southeast Melbourne. They've gone up against the top 2 teams 3 times this season and fallen at every hurdle so far, beaten pretty convincingly twice by Melbourne United, and then Adelaide took care of them at home earlier in the season. They are built as a defensive team. They pressure the ball. They've got guards absolutely coming out the wazoo. Do you think they have the kind of weaponry to, let's not say stop, let's say slow down Bryce Cotton?
We've gone in the past with game plans to slow down Bryce and had 55 put on our head. So, that's a massive task, and that's the challenge with Adelaide. I mean, look at the year that Isaac Humphries is having too. And it's not just one guy, DJ Vasiljevic coming off the bench now. Another guy who can, light the scoreboard up. There's options everywhere for that group. And I think that's the challenge with a team like Adelaide is that it's going to come in waves scoring wise, and having one really good quarter doesn't mean the job's done at all. So I'm sure Phoenix are aware of that. They seem to really have found themselves defensively in that consistency. Obviously, they've had some losses they have said were disappointed with, but at the same time, they've bounced back really quickly, which I think is a great sign. Successful teams and championship teams traditionally in our league bounce back really well. You don't have long streaks of rough patches or playing poorly, and I feel like Phoenix have done that well this season. So yeah, it'll be a fun game.
They've some good matchups. They're going to be able to throw bodies at him, and then the likes of John Brown and Zylan Cheatham could be good fun as well. Now, I mean, I don't want to bring up bad memories, but Bryce Cotton played against New Zealand last year and had 59 over in Perth. He's had a couple of those games in this early part, and even on Wednesday night, he gets going really in that second half. There was clearly a lot of emotion around that contest for him. But as someone who's been out there and been on the sideline on the court when he really gets going and starts to get in that rhythm, what's that like as a player watching this guy? I mean, it's one thing as a fan, it's one thing as a commentator when you can almost sense that this is happening. I've likened it in the past to, it's like a thunderstorm building. You can see it off in the distance. The air's got that sort of charged feel about it, and all of a sudden it starts raining and there's nothing you can do to stop it. You just need to hope that you're not outside. What's it like when you're a player and Bryce or someone like him gets going in that sort of really amazing way?
Yeah, I probably wouldn't have admitted this at the time, but looking back now, it's you do feel it. It's one of those things where you're just like, oh man, here he goes again. Like you see him flying off the pin down, you see that maybe the guard is disconnected or the big's not at the level. You're like, this is going to be another bucket, and then it is. So I think from that perspective, like it does like that. It does become very consuming, and I think that's what makes playing Bryce so tough is that it's not just one method works. His ability to break scouts and score in different ways, and also get his teammates involved in different ways. He's a great passer, so he's incredibly frustrating because he's able to change his plan of attack as well. And then you look at the groups around him, and they're super talented too. So too much attention here, and you get punished on the roll. I know Isaac's spoken a lot about that this year, how happy he is playing with Bryce now instead of playing against him, and just knowing where to roll, and he just finds him with the ball all the time. So, I think it is one of those things that you become so aware of Bryce, and then it's incredibly frustrating when he breaks the scout anyway.
Yeah, he's one of one, that is for sure. The final game of the round is also significant, of course. The early game Sunday, Tassie go from Perth to Tassie to play against Sydney. So that's going to be a tough little road trip for them with a pretty grueling travel day, Saturday or Friday night. And then the late game is Melbourne United and Perth. So Perth come off that Tassie game across country to play Melbourne on Sunday. Melbourne having played Illawarra earlier in the early game this evening. When these two teams get together, it's always good. Christian Doolittle plays well against Melbourne. Historically, had a really good postseason series last year. You've got JLA and Edwards. You've got Walker versus Duke Jr. You've got these two teams that have got legions of players coming in off the bench. This could be a fun way to cap the round.
Yeah, I think it's to see the Sydney Kings rolling now too. They're another unit that you look at on paper and you go, holy, like if they're rolling, that's going to be hard to slow down. And now we're seeing that. We talked about Perth's cohesion. Early on in the year, I think Sydney have started to find that as a group, and they're going to be super exciting down the stretch. I think with the talent that they've got and the athleticism that they have. And then, yeah, it's tough traveling back from Perth. It takes its toll. So, that's going to be a challenge for both groups coming back over to the East Coast and playing. But, yeah, United and Perth was always fiery. Like when we played each other, I always felt like that was a bit of a, rivalry, I suppose. So those two teams would be up for that game. And like we talked about, Tassie need to be up for every game.
Yeah, indeed they do. Indeed they do. That is NBL Now. From slam dunks to the stories you don't see on game night. Code Sports has got you covered, of course, thanks to Code Sports. As always, codesports.com.au or the Code Sports app. Mitch, great to chop it up with you. Good to hear you doing good things. And thanks for joining us here on NBL Now.
Thanks so much for having me on. Appreciate it.
Mitch McCarron with you on a Friday. Thanks for your company here on NBL Now. Of course, a massive weekend of hoops coming, moments that mattered on Monday, and there'll be plenty more coming across the FIBA break. Don't you worry about that.